All right, so let's re-examine some things here, shall we? First things first. Yes, this is Ciri. Ciri is fantastic. We can also see here, look at the attire of the local villages and stuff. They haven't changed the time period too much. So we haven't gone too far forward because of the fact that the peasantry, the locals, are still dressed the same exact way. And this tradition of sacrificing people to monsters in the woods is something we saw in the previous Witcher games. So that tradition is still there. Now, if we continue forward a little bit here.
You can't. 'Tis tradition. Chosen she is by the gods. No.
That right there is the second piece. So we can see Ciri. She's got the white hair. She's got the distinctive scar on her cheek. But her eyes are Witcher eyes. Ciri was not a Witcher. So she's undergone the mutations. She is now an official Witcher. The question is, how did this happen? Because Witchers are made from children, not adults. And Ciri was clearly an adult in the third game. Second, who did it? Because as we got to learn about the trial of the grasses in Witcher 3, and we got to know about the mutations, the sorceresses, the trials of the chemicals, the extra parts that get added, the monster fights that they have to endure, and most of the time everyone die. Like a large portion of the Witcher recruits die before reaching their teenage years, let alone actually complete it and become full-blown Witchers. The other thing is that it requires a sorceress, because a sorceress or sorcerer has to perform the magic to stabilize the child while all these mutations are being shoved into their little tiny bodies so that they will take. And even then, the sorceress or sorcerer involved usually ends up not wanting to continue to be part of these things because of the extreme levels of pain that the children go through and the horrible, gruesome deaths that take place. And they're directly responsible for it because you can't make Witchers without a magic user. She is now a Witcher. So at some point, someone decided to revive making Witchers again because as of Witcher 3, nobody was making Witchers anymore. That was the hard stop rule, right? All Witchers were done being made. The Witchers that existed, that was all there was ever going to be. The next piece is that Witchers wear the medallions of their schools. For those who don't recognize this medallion, good. Then you were paying attention because it's not an established school. That's not the Wolf School. Nope. The Wolf School has the points on the outside of the fur all the way around, not just on the bottom. This is a new school entirely. This is the School of the Lynx. The School of the Lynx was something that was very, very, very briefly mentioned when Witcher 3 first came out and was first completed. And it was never brought up again. Looks like they decided to go forward with it. The School of the Lynx, for those who are unfamiliar with the original little leaked lore in the very beginning of Witcher 3's release, if Kira, the sorceress that's the Witch of the Woods, right? If you can go through her whole storyline and you can keep her alive to the point where she shows up at Kaer Morhen to help defend Ciri, she ends up linking up with Lambert. And her and Lambert leave after the Wild Hunt siege and go and found a new school, the School of the Lynx. And the School of the Lynx was supposed to be a mixture of School of the Cat and School of the Wolf training techniques. This is confirmation that that little tiny briefly leaked piece of information of Kira and Lambert leaving and going off and starting a new Witcher school became true, and it's the School of the Lynx. So that's kind of freaking cool. But that also means Lambert, the guy who hates being a Witcher, the guy who hated the concept of being Witchers, the guy who hated the fact that Witchers existed and the torture they went through, because Lambert was the only surviving member of his class. Everybody else died, and he was pretty pissy about that the entire game. He started a new fucking Witcher school to do the same fucking torture to people that he detested and said that was an abomination and a horrible thing to do to people. And here it is. He started a new fucking school and he's doing the same exact damn thing that he was standing against and so vocally against in the third game, which is fantastic because that's real. What do I mean by that? Did you know? Here's a good American example here. You can find it in other cultures. Other cultures are going to do the same thing Americans are going to do and not talk about it. It's not going to be the forefront of our history. We had slavery back in the day, right? But we also had blacks who owned black slaves. Now, the fun fact is that almost all of the black slave owners that owned black slaves were previous slaves themselves. They subjected their fellow human being to the same horrors and atrocities that they hated, that they were subjected to, because it gave them a sense of power. And it guaranteed they would never have to suffer or endure it again, so they inflicted it on others to save themselves from it. So it makes sense that Lambert is inflicting those same horrors that he hates and detests on others to ensure it'll never be inflicted on him again. So fantastic. So it makes sense that they use Lambert, and I'm glad they did, because that's the most realistic answer there. But I'm curious on how they got a grown adult to successfully complete the Trial of the Grasses. Now, the question there comes in is, did the Trial of Grasses get changed? So now all of people, regardless of their age, can now undergo it? Did they find a way to make it safer before they subjected Ciri to it? Because here's the thing about Ciri. When you play the video games, it's very clear that Geralt views Ciri as his daughter, that Yennefer views Ciri as her daughter, that they're kind of like a dysfunctional, unofficial mom, dad, child mixture, right? Fantastic. Except for, if you read the books, all that training that we see in the beginning of Witcher 3, where Geralt's running the ramparts and doing the training with her and all of that, it's not how it happened in the books. How it happened in the books was it was Lambert. Lambert was the one, and Lambert and Co. Co was Geralt's apprentice from the first game that died in the first game. Those are the two that actually trained and raised Ciri at Kaer Morhen. Yes, Geralt was there. Yes, Geralt dealt with the overall big picture stuff, but he wasn't involved with her on a daily basis. He wasn't the one running her through the training and the trials. He wasn't the one making sure that she was keeping up with her studies. That was all Lambert. Co helped with the training part as a sparring partner and training partner, but Lambert was the one that was the instructor for everything. Lambert's the one who raised Ciri in the books. So when you think about that, you have Lambert, who hates Witchers, who started a new Witcher school, who raised her and trained her as his own kid, and then he subjected her to making and made her to become a Witcher, like subjected her to those trials of the grasses and the torture and everything and the horrors that go along with it, and Kira was complacent with it. At bare minimum, she had to assist during the Trial of Grasses for stabilizing Ciri. So, like, that's why it's like, there's a couple key pieces here that are really super important. And then we've also got that right there, that moment. She ended up taking one of the drinks that the Witchers use. From the looks of her eyes, we can see it acting through her veins with the purple vein, the black veins there. But the change of her eyes, she took the one that gives night vision. Okay? That's the concoction she took. Except for if you play the Witcher games and you go back to the second Witcher game, the very first thing you do is you come across the guy who's injured. And you go, hey, I can make you a potion that'll heal you, but there's a good chance it's going to kill you. However, if we don't do anything, you're going to die anyways. You know, and Geralt goes to this big old spiel about how Witcher's potions are not suitable for human consumption. Humans will die most of the time if they take a Witcher concoction. There are rare exceptions, but for the most part, it kills them flat out. So again, we see that she is now no longer relying heavily on her magic, which is how she previously, in the previous games and in the books, handled situations. She had her swordplay, but she used her magic. Now, she's actually going in and relying on the Witcher concoctions, and because she's able to do that, and we can clearly see the eye shift change, which indicates the night vision concoction, that right there also confirms that, yes, in fact, she is a Witcher. It's not just that her eyes have changed. It's not just they've decided to update based on whatever graphics or whatever and hope people have forgotten stories. No, she's a hard Witcher now. So that's another big one. And then we get this scene here. So we can see Ciri drawing on that same exact magic that she was using in the third game to teleport between realms. So she's now wielding it openly, where in the previous game, she wielded it sparingly, and the reason she wielded it sparingly was because it drew the attention of the Wild Hunt, which this also tells us that us taking out the Wild Hunt in the previous game definitively actually wiped out that entire faction. They're no longer actively around. Yes, we killed their leader, but just like any other organization, you would expect its members to like refill the ranks, rebuild, lick its wounds in the shadow somewhere, and all of that fun stuff. But they're drawn to this magic specifically because she's the last of her line. So looks like we're going to get far more magic. And right here, in this one, right there. That right there, that's not magic. That's the signs. So she's also using Witcher signs. So she's using Witcher signs, and she's using her magic with her swordplay and the Witcher concoctions. So she's using all of it now, openly. So there is no longer a threat directly to Ciri. And the fact that she's also running around doing shit like this also means she's not the Empress of Niflgaard. She didn't take her daddy's throne like her daddy intended. And then right here, we get to see a new weapon. That. What's around her wrist? And then being able to infuse it with magic like that. That is going to be a really cool weapon. I'm curious on if it's going to be like a kind of like a scorpion move, like you from Mortal Kombat, right? You attach the chain and then it pulls you to them or keeps your distance to them. Or if it's going to be one of those like it attaches you, but how close or far away you are depends on movement. But you're like chained together and you can shoot elemental damage down the chain. I'm curious on how they're going to incorporate that weapon, because that weapon is not a weapon that's been in the universe of Witcher yet, in books or in video games. So that means we've got new toys coming too. So not only are we probably playing as Ciri, not only is Ciri a full-bore Witcher now, and she's openly using her magic, but we've also got new weapons.